Hey, what's up there, YouTube friends? Cheddar here, back with another video. First off, I hope you are doing well. I hope you have a great day today, and I hope everything goes well for you. Thank you for joining me for this video. This is going to be a quick review and a discussion of the movie Mickey 17. Mickey 17 is, just to discuss that really fast, what is the movie? Mickey 17 is directed and written by the director Bong Joon Ho. Bong Joon Ho. I'm trying, okay? I always try to say things the right way. I tried, okay? A for effort. So Bong Joon Ho directed the movie Parasite, which won many Oscars and awards a few years ago. I think in 2018 or not 2020. It was around there, okay? Parasite was very good, okay? Parasite was excellent. So I was excited for Mickey 17. I went into this movie pretty blind. I knew it was about clones. I knew Robert Pattinson as, I guess, Mickey was going to be cloned, but I didn't really know much else about that. I knew there were multiple copies of him. So it is a story about cloning. And yeah, it's an interesting science fiction comedy movie. To me, it felt like almost like a British comedy version of a Star Trek episode where it's sort of a very philosophical and politically focused movie, but at the same time, it's so goofy and cartoonish, even more so because the villain of the movie is just incredibly cartoony. The antagonistic force of this movie is very, very, very cartoony. And so it makes the movie very comedic. At times it felt like almost a Coen Brothers-esque comedy. Maybe I just always think Coen Brothers, they're my favorite directors, but it felt Coen Brothers-esque where you have, I guess, kind of crime caper comedy. There's some dark comedy in here too. So it is almost more of a comedy movie with, philosophical. It's like they have these philosophical and political ideas and say, how do we make this digestible for everyone, right? And we'll make it into a comedy. Another movie that kind of did this some years ago, actually not kind of, it directly did this, was The Big Short, with talking about the 2008 financial crisis. They integrate lots of comedy to make it accessible, to make the information more enjoyable, so it's not just boring numbers, right? And this movie also does that. Mickey 17, at least that's what it feels like. It's the goal of the movie, is what it's working to do is to give you these kind of cartoon characters, representations of ideas, and then just make kind of jokes about it, but also it gets you to think about the situation also. And that's what I really liked about the movie. I did like this movie, and I do recommend it, but it's all at the same time, I don't really recommend it to general audiences, because it'd be like recommending an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Even if it's a funnier episode, a more funny episode, it's still doesn't feel like it's for the masses, if that makes sense. It's not a crowd pleaser movie. It's more of a thoughtful art movie. And I mean, the only problem I really had with the movie, I feel like I say this a lot, but it felt like it overstayed its welcome, or it didn't need to be so long. And I saw the movie with a friend, and we were discussing about it, and I just agree too that less is more. If you're trying to make your story more impactful, you don't need more minutes of story, because in one way I understand directors are trying to give you, thoughtful, creative directors are trying to give you an epic product. They want you to, if you're paying for something, they want you to really get something good. And I respect that, and I like that. I just also don't think, I think if you're forcing your movie to be 2.5 hours, or if you're trying to shoot, I think directors like to try to make their movie as epic as possible, right? They want to be like Titanic. They want to be talked about. They want it to be epic. Epicness is what it's about. And so a lot of times I feel like there's a forced epicness in movies, and I'd rather just watch the story be done, like be told in its most best possible way. And I didn't think that happened here. It is really well told. It's entertaining. It's funny. It's thoughtful. I did really like the movie. I probably sit at a B+ for it. I may go A-, but I don't think I liked it that much. So not lower than a B for me. So, my range of enjoyment was B to A minus. I did really like the movie. And I suggest to see it if you like thoughtful movies that are not, action sci-fi. This is nothing like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. This is more like a classic Star Trek episode with more comedy, a little bit mixed with Monty Python almost. But now that I've given my brief review of the movie, we'll go into the actual discussion of the philosophy, what I think the core of the movie is. That's what I'm more interested in talking about. So just be warned from this point, there's going to be some spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, I just suggest to go see it first. If you don't mind spoilers, or if you want to go in with more information, then feel free to stick around here. So just be warned from this point forward, we're going to talk spoilers. I'm going to talk about what's in the movie and what I think it means and what I think maybe the core ideas are about. Okay, so spoiler warning now. All right, so there's a lot happening in Mickey 17. There's a lot of ideas, very, I would say, both philosophical and political. The villain in the movie, Mark Ruffalo, obviously, like doing his Donald Trump impression, he's there to represent Donald Trump, and that sort of movement, I suppose, of taking over the government and taking everything into your own hands and doing these kind of radical changes, right? And that's what Mark Ruffalo is representing. There's lots of represented ideas in here, but what I think the biggest idea that the movie's talking about, what I titled this video for, right, is, are clones expendable? And when I say that, there's many sub questions that come up, and I'm trying not to be overwhelmed and just try and talk about them one at a time. But are clones expendable, right? That's, I think, the question that's posed. If we figure out a way to clone people, almost like 3D print people, right? Imagine we can print out, I say the word print, but generate biological bodies. We have a backup of a consciousness, like a conscious, and you just upload the conscious into the backup of the body, right? So it's in a way to fake immortality. So if maybe there's so many ways to use science like that. Like if you die, you can just reprint yourself. Almost, it'd be like living in a video game where another instance of yourself is reprinted, and it just has your memories up to that point, and you just get to continue. That already right there, there's a lot of philosophical complications and everything. There's so much to talk about. But then let's move on, because this movie takes the idea a step further, and it's talking about, we've already figured out how to clone people. Now, at this point, companies or the government, possibly both, probably both, is cloning people and getting them to sign up to do these dangerous, mostly deadly tasks for scientific research, right? We're going to put the clones in these deadly situations, see how fast they die. And the nice part about this is this lets us test out vaccines, right? This lets us test out for scientific purposes. In a way, it is a good idea, because it's almost like you're generating these crash test dummies that work as actual humans. They're not just a dummy, right? So we get to see the measurable exact effects. In a way, it's like the best scientific testing you can do is directly, have a person experience these and, note down what's happened and learn from that experience. That's what humanity has done for any major, I guess, science accidents. We see what happened in this, in this, what started this fire, and we analyze it, right? But having the clone humans, just allows us to sort of cheat death and just bypass the whole process and really get more scientific data, right? So now we have to ask the question, is that moral? Is that legal? Is that reasonable? Should we do that, right? Is that the right thing to do? Should we clone people, and then are those clones okay to die just because we can be reprinted? Is there any meaning there. Like, people really are sacrificable. I mean, in a way, it sounds like it'd be interesting because if you wanted to know what it's like to die, I'm like, I want to know what it's like to die falling out of a plane. You could test that out, and guess what? You just reprint yourself, and you're fine. You may not have a problem with there being a new instance of you, and I think it's a bit more complicated. At first, if you hear the question, are clones expendable? Most people probably say like, no, clones are people too. And if we clone someone, then they're both people. And they kind of bring it up in the movie too. They talk a little bit about how souls should only be in, one body. And they talk a little bit about religion. There's touches of religion in the movie, but I think mostly it's about how we're going to use clones. And also, is like, are companies and the government going to try to abuse and use clones this way? I think the elephant in the room, or the dark secret, is yes. Yes, if we get to this technology, it's going to be attempted to be used in this way, where basically companies will clone their workers and, send them in, and we'll be working off of clones, and clones will probably have like cheaper insurance and stuff like that. And I think the movie's talking about something sort of real too. And where I think it gets complicated and just deeper is because, well, I have property. Let's say I'm cloned, and then there's a clone of me. Does that clone get my same ownership and property rights? Does it own the same things I do? And then if that clone commits crime, did I then commit that crime? So I think it really muddies the water when you have clones in a legal sense, but this also is still joined with what I'm saying with where I don't think clones are expendable, because when someone's cloned, there's perhaps more room for thought with this, right? It just seems like that clone is entitled, the clone of a human is entitled to his or her own property rights, their own rights also. And I guess the lines can be drawn at, if you're going to dehumanize them, are you going to see that clone as not a human, or are you? And if you don't see them as a human, then you understand you need to understand, and you probably do understand, that you're cheating the system, because the clone is supposed to be a clone, right? It's the same thing. And if you're cloning a person, then that clone of the person is a person. And if you're going to say that, well, it's a clone, it's not a person, you're cheating the game, and I do think companies and politicians, and that's going to be, if this technology becomes invented, it will go in that direction, in this exact way that Mickey 17 showed it. I mean, it was more cartoony, of course, in Mickey 17, but this will exactly happen if possible. They will be used to justify, abusing people and expending people, and they'll have different terminologies, but I do think that it will be attempted to be used in this way, if at all possible. And again, I don't think that the clones are expendable, because I'm not approaching it from a soul perspective. I just mean, when you're printing someone out, you're still printing out a person. You still have a human being, even if you're going to clone a human, right? Then your clone of a human is a human. And so you need to treat that human as a human. And I'm not trying to say mistreat animals. I'm trying to say that we need to see that clone as a human. That clone is not a tool for us, right? And if we're going to look at ourselves, our humans, ourselves like that, clones of us like that, I think it begs the question, like, are we expendable? Is it just the dying that makes us, expendable, I guess, or the cheating of death? There's more to it. It's the uniqueness, the humanity, the individualness, right? And it's the identity, the self, and it's all of that, So I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think clones should be expendable, but I do think that, as Mickey 17 showed, companies and governments are going to attempt this, if at all possible, if this technology becomes invented. I think it will be used in the same way, where they're just going to be sent in for scientific testing, and it's probably going to be lied to the public about how it's used and what it's even used for, and all of that. So Mickey 17 was interesting because I don't usually think of clones and the morality behind clones, right? But this one I thought raised some good questions because we're not talking about, I don't know, even cloning other animals. We're talking about cloning people and doing something with them. So I thought it was an interesting sci-fi question, right? Of should humanity do this? And, you know, I guess my answer is I hope not, but it probably will, right? It's probably going to happen, and whether it's put a stop to or address is another question, right? But I just mean it's probably going to happen. Like when humanity discovered sailing, pirates came, right? You know, people start being pirates. So it's where there's a good, people are going to abuse it, and so that's just, I think, the natural progression. But I do hope that clones of people are not used in this way. I'm not even sure if we should be, you know, cloning people. It is, I guess, I think a kind of scientifically and philosophically deep question. You know, should we clone people and use them? And I don't think so, because I think there's so many moral and kind of scientific questions, and also legal. There's a lot of legal ramifications, like I've already described. Like if your clone, he can commit identity theft for you, basically, right? You have a clone, you think he's your friend, and what if he is betraying you the whole time? You know, you can do that to your clone too. You know, you and your clone, you can pull some what's that movie? Oh shoot, I shouldn't spoil it, right? There's a movie I really like where there's like a body double involved in, and there's some magicians involved, and if you know what I'm talking about, you know there's two magicians and they're kind of a clone, and it's a cool ass movie. I love that movie. So it's always the damn clones, man. I'm just kidding around. Yeah, so, you know, I guess I'm saying clone rights. Clones of humans are humans too, and if we're not going to abuse humans, we shouldn't abuse clones, is probably the logic that I'm following. So that's my thoughts on it. I also do think, like I said, I think the technology is going to be abused if possible. But let me know if you saw this movie or if you had any different interpretations. That's what I thought the core of the movie was. I know there's Donald Trump stuff in. I know there's some political stuff in. I know it's relevant, but I mean, I thought the core of the movie, the main idea that the movie's talking about is, if we can clone humans, is it wrong to use them in this way? And, you know, will it happen? And I do think that I've already gone over it, right? I do think companies will use it this way, and no, I don't think it's right. So that's all. Let me know if you have any different insight. I would love to hear that. Let me know if you thought I was wrong. Let me know what, you know, anything that you want to know. That's really cool to do. I appreciate comments to try to respond to any of that, but thank you for listening and for watching. I hope you have a great and a beautiful day. Thank you for your time. Stay awesome out there. Cheddar out. Goodbye.